Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Harder Not Smarter podcast. This morning we have a super interesting guest named Tom Scarda, who's the owner of the Franchise Academy. And I know a lot of veterans and people in general who are interested in entrepreneurship have the idea of what a franchise is, but oftentimes it's full of misconceptions and misinformation. And so we have Tom today to talk about all the aspects of franchising, about what it means to be a franchise owner, the highs and lows. I know he's had some great stories and some not so great stories about what happens when you get into the right or the wrong franchises. And then he also can talk about, how to prepare yourself and what it takes to be a successful franchise owner. So, Tom, welcome to the show, and we look forward to having this conversation with you.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. I'm excited. I'm honored to be here.
Awesome. And I know when we first spoke a while back, you had two very distinct stories about the high of being a franchise owner and then the low of the franchise ownership. If you want to jump into those two scenarios.
Yeah, we could jump right into the messy stuff.
Oh,
So,
the best stuff is the messy stuff.
right. I mean, I've owned and operated or been a franchisee of two different franchise concepts. The first one was something called Maui Wowie Smoothies, which went really well. I made a lot of money on it and made a lot of money on the sale of it. Then bought a second franchise called Super Suppers, and it was a bust, and I lost a lot of money. And so there's differences, like what the heck happened. And so I can talk to that. And the thing is, like I always say to folks, if we're like on a plane and it's going down and I only got like two things I could say to you. One is don't become infatuated with a franchise concept, but look around, keep your mind open, and don't do something that has to do with your hobbies because you'll hate your hobby in about 6 months.
Whenever you get into something that was fun and then becomes work, it's like the military, shooting on the range. You're like, this is a lot of fun shooting guns, and then you go to especially in the Marine Corps. The Marine Corps had a special knack for making really fun things not so fun anymore. You have range cleanup and all that other stuff. So I'm sure once you start getting into the nitty gritty of the franchise ownership, you're like, man, this becomes a lot more laborious once it becomes day in, day out, and you need to manage every little detail.
Well, it's true. I mean, early in my career, I've been in this role of matching people with franchise opportunities for 19 years now. And early in my career, I had these two guys that came to me. They were buddies. They worked together, and they got laid off from Wall Street. And they're like, "Hey, we want to get into something that has to do with golf because we love golf." And I'm like, "Well, interesting. I could help you find something to do with golf, but in about 6 months, you're gonna hate it because you're trying to pay your mortgage with golf, and you're not going to be on the golf course. You're going to be in a store selling golf clubs. I mean, that's the golf franchise. So I said, how about if you humor me a little bit, and let's see if we could find you a franchise that can help you golf to your heart's content. And so they said, okay, let's give it a shot. And they ended up getting into something that gave them a lot of freedom and gave them a lot of money. I had dinner with them for Christmas, probably, oh my God, had to be 5 years ago now. But, COVID time condenses everything. But 5 years ago.
It's just a black hole in everybody's time or concept of time.
Terrible.
What year was that? Was it the year I got COVID, or was it the year I didn't get COVID?
Right. Exactly. Pre or post. But when I talked to them, the phone was ringing off the hook. They played golf like all over the world, including St. Andrews and Scotland. I mean, it was cool. And that is an important aspect because people feel like, oh, I love to bake. Let me open up a bakery, and, baking is only 10% of running a bakery. It's the whole business aspect behind it that really keeps it going. And that's really what you need to translate your skills into is like the leadership, being able to communicate, being able to lead, which is why vets do so well in franchising.
Have you read the book The E-Myth Revisited?
Michael Gerber, absolutely.
I was about to say, like, as soon as you said the bakery concept is very different than being a baker, that was one of the actually, I think that was the main storyline that you're kind of following with that was him talking to the woman who runs a bakery, and she just is starting to hate baking because she just
Yes.
doesn't get to do it anymore. She's doing the bookkeeping and the time management, the logistics, and the storefront and the marketing.
Right.
Um, and yeah, Michael Gerber, that's his big thing is it's so hard for people who are doing the technical thing of a business to shift from doing the technical to running the business. Um, and so that's probably a great segue for people to get into the franchise. Like you're not going to be doing well. You might start off as you're just getting your foot in the door with the franchise doing the thing, but you have to go into it knowing that you're going to be stepping away from those technical tasks and you're going to be running the business instead.
Well, and that's it. That is, that the E Myth Revisited by Gerba is recommended to everybody who's thinking about franchising or thinking about starting a business because it lays it out so well. And so what happens is, like to steal Michael's stuff, it's like, you get into the bakery, you start it because you're a great baker and everybody loves your cakes and your cupcakes and whatever. But then you realize, oh my God, I got to get up at this time in the morning and open the shop, and now I got to go shop for the goods and all this stuff. And so one of two things is going to happen. One is a good thing is hopefully you're going to just plateau, and you'll chase your tail and you'll make a couple of bucks, but you're going to hate it because you're running around like a chicken without a head. The
Mm-hmm.
second scenario is you go out of business because you just don't know how to run a business. You know how to bake, but you don't know how to run a business. And so that's where franchising comes in. A franchise is a business with training wheels. So they help you with everything, every last detail, because it's a symbiotic relationship. The onus is on them to help you be successful. The more money you make, the more money they make. And that is the beautiful thing about franchising for most people. It's
Mm-hmm.
not for everybody, but for most people, it works well.
Absolutely, and that's one of the things that Greg and I talk about a lot are the three B's of entrepreneurship. You basically have three routes that you can go down to be an entrepreneur. You can either build, borrow, or buy, and the borrow concept is the franchise one. You're borrowing someone's existing business model and just recreating it in another location. They might have them in Southern California, and you're gonna start one in Northern California. All you're doing, you have the same marketing, you have the same logistics, you have the same design layout, you have the same product, you have the same everything. The only thing you're doing is opening a different location and finding new customers in that area to bring in.
Right.
And so what it comes down to is it's a lot of leadership and management and following checklists, which is why veterans do so well to it. And I know that you just mentioned that veterans, this is a phenomenal path for veterans to get into who are interested in business.
Yep. But I want to clarify something that's really important that I don't think ever gets said anywhere in the franchise world. The fact of the matter is, anyone could franchise any business. So it's almost like buyer beware.
Mm-hmm.
And just because it's a franchise doesn't mean that it's a good business. It doesn't mean that it makes money. It doesn't mean that they're going to support you. All you have to do, like if you, whatever it is, you have whatever widget you want to, oh, this is great, I want to franchise it. All you need is a lawyer and $50,000, and they'll get you all the criteria that you need. It's actually government regulated, so you need the attorney to go in and get all this documentation, and it's run by the Federal Trade Commission. But the Federal Trade Commission doesn't care whether you make money or not. What they're concerned about is that you're not money laundering or a terrorist organization or Patriot Act type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They don't care if you support your franchise owners. So people, they feel like, oh my God, I hate my boss. I'm going to buy a franchise, and I love XYZ, you name it, and then they go find a franchise in that space, not realizing like these guys don't know anything about franchising, which is one of the problems I had with my second franchise. It was actually a culinary school and not a franchise operation. And so, you pay all this money and then you're up the creek. And they can't help you. They don't know how to help you. So that's kind of where I come in. We vet the franchises to make sure that they have the money behind them, then the leadership, the training, the support, like all this package where a lot of companies say they have it, but they don't have it. They don't administer it at all.
So Tom, let's talk about the elephant in the room for probably a lot of these guests or these people that are listening in right now. What's up with these people on LinkedIn that are always hitting us up for franchise opportunities? What are they
Oh,
actually offering? And like, how do you vet those people? It seems like
holy
I
cow.
get a message, and I'm sure that everybody that's listening to this gets messages all the time on LinkedIn about opening up a franchise. What's it all about?
Holy cow, Greg. I mean, I don't have an answer. What it is, because I get it myself, right? My whole LinkedIn is franchise, franchise, buy, I help you with a friend. And then I get this, oh, maybe your profile looks great. You should think about franchise ownership. Um, it's bots. If
You
you
don't
look,
say.
right, if you look into the profile, they're usually out of the country. They usually have no franchise experience in their resume on LinkedIn. So I believe, and we're talking with like high level people in franchising about this now to try to curb this somehow. So I believe it's franchise lead companies. In almost any industry, you could buy leads for whatever you're doing. And I believe that they have these bots out there just like it's a free for all. Let me see who I can get, you know. And some of it might be legit. I don't know. I've answered a few and I've not gotten any responses from them. So it's weird. It's like I don't know if you get a lot of spam calls on your cell phone like I do, but
Hmm.
Oh yeah.
because if you call back the number, I've done it a couple of times. There's no answer. The phone is like disconnected. So like it's more annoying than anything, and it's also the bane of my existence, Greg.
That's good to hear. So how do you go about finding a good franchise opportunity? Obviously, like reaching out to you and working with you is, my probably like would be my go-to, but how do you vet a franchise opportunity? How do you go about that process?
So the first thing is you got to back up and think about who you are, what you are, your skill set, and how it's going to work in a franchise. Like you have some people that are introverts, they're wallflowers. They don't want to they shouldn't get into a franchise where you're going to be out marketing and talking to people and trying to convince customers to buy from you. Then there's other people that have this sales, they could talk and they're very extroverted. Um, and so they would be good for a certain kind of franchise for that reason. And so you got to know who you are, know thyself or whatever it is they say. Um,
Socrates.
Socrates,
I
Socrates,
think it was.
one of those guys. And so that's where you start. Then if you're doing it on your own without a consultant like me, then you contact companies that you think are going to be a good fit for your skill set. And that's to me that's kind of hard to do. Like an example is, some people say, hey, I want to get into like a laundromat. It's a good example. Everybody thinks like a coin laundromat is like a great business.
The
and
Cody
and
Sanchez model.
Cody's right. And what she's missing though is the fact that it's a sales business. By just having a laundromat or a car wash, even another good example. I have a buddy who owns like 5 car washes on Long Island. Um, the money's not made by the people coming in and using the service. The money's made on the business to business side. So either you or the owner have to get out there, and if it's a car wash, you want to talk to, all the limousine companies and the taxi companies, and you want to get those corporate accounts. If it's a laundromat, you want to be in there and you want to be talking to restaurants that are getting their linens done and things like that, corporate stuff. That's the real bread and butter. You don't make money by people putting quarters in a dryer. There's no money there. So
And I know with your history, obviously that thick accent, like my in-laws, you're from New York. How did you go from whatever it is you had at the beginning to be like, I'm going to start a Maui Wowie smoothie shop, and this is going to be a great choice for me?
right. It's a little. convoluted story, but I'll tell you real quick. I was a subway conductor in New York City, opening and closing the doors on the trains in New York. So I was the guy making the announcements that you couldn't understand, all that stuff. Stand clear to closing doors. That
That
was
everyone
me.
ignores and can't hear. Yeah.
Right. Everybody cursing at me and everything. I was there for 13 years, but I was young when I started. I was like 23, and there was an old timer who said, "You know what, kid? This is a great job because you'll always have a shirt on your back. It's a government job. You just show up and you get paid. Like you don't even have to work." So he said, "It's a great job because you'll always have a shirt on your back." He said, "It'll never be a silk shirt, but at least you'll have a shirt." I was like, "Whoa, man, that's like mediocrity, right?"
It's really
I'm like,
not selling it anymore.
yeah, I'm like, come on, man. So I looked at my bosses, and they were not wearing the metaphorical silk shirts. They all looked like they were about to have a heart attack, and everybody's counting down their time to their pension. It sounds like a prison sentence. Oh, I got 6 years and 3 months to go. I'm like, this is like no future. I ended up doing it for like 13 years, trying to figure it out. So I'm on the train working, reading The E-Myth by Michael Gerber and reading Tony Robbins stuff and franchise books and all sorts of stuff. And I realized a franchise is a business with training wheels. Then I was on vacation in San Diego,
Great spot.
by you, and I saw Cold Stone Creamery ice cream. This is 1999. They just first started, and I was like, "This is what I want to do." And I get back home. I get on the internet, as feeble as it was back then, and I find their website. I apply for information. P.S. They have not gotten back to me yet. This is like
I'm still waiting 15 years later or 25 years later.
Still waiting.
I can do math.
And then I found a franchise consultant that works with the company I work with now, this lady Carol. I talked to her, and I'm like, I don't need to like go through your whole process of trying to evaluate who I am or whatever. I know what I want. I want this Cold Stone thing. And she's like, "Oh, that's great, but your budget is $100,000, and there's $350 for one Cold Stone." I'm like, ugh.
That's
And she
steep,
said,
steep buy-in.
right, really steep. And she said, if you had the money, I would vehemently try to talk you out of it anyway, because their franchise agreement is lopsided. I'm like, what does that mean? I'm a government guy. What do I know? And they had so many fees, and they have so many fees. The franchise company's making a lot of money. The franchisees are not making not much money at all. And so that's kind of one of the things as you're looking at a franchise, like if you never looked at franchises before, how do you know? And that's kind of what I help people do, is evaluate that kind of stuff. And so she ended up saying, "You know what? Look at this other thing called Maui Wowie." And it was just a tiki hut on wheels. It was not a store. It was right up my alley. I loved it. And we bought it 2005. We bought it in 2000, sold it in 2005, and I semi-retired at 41 years old. And it was, with the grace of God, I worked my butt off. I loved every minute of it. Worked way harder than I did working for the transit system, but I loved it. It was my baby. And
It's
and
interesting
that's
how
Now
that
you got a
works.
Hooey. Now you got a
Yeah.
Hooey shirt on.
I got
That
a
probably
Hooey
is
shirt.
close to silk.
Yeah, there we go.
So
I mean, this is like one of my most favorite shirts in the world. It
huge
fits
shout
so
out
well.
to Bobby Holland of Hooley Golf. I actually own that exact shirt. If you want to see it, check out Hooley Golf on LinkedIn. I think one of the promo videos they've done recently has me wearing that shirt. So
Oh, really?
shout out to myself and Bobby. We
Cool.
did a golf shoot. It's probably 6 months ago. Went out to I'm trying to remember the name of the golf course. It's a nice one around here. But went out there, did a little golf shoot. We're going to do another one, I think, next month.
Cool.
It's supporting a good cause. Bobby Holland's a former SEAL who got obsessed with golf because they were on deployment hold, waiting to fly out. And so to keep the platoon busy so they didn't get in trouble while waiting around, they brought him out to the golf course every day. And he's like, this is a really fun activity. I'm going to get better at this. And so he brought his clubs out to, I think it was Iraq at the time, kept golfing, came back, golfed even more. And then as he was getting out, he went to UCLA for his MBA, was figuring out how to start a golf bag company. He started drawing up golf bags, and they realized, going through his MBA, that there's no market in golf bags. Like, how often do you obviously golf? How often have you bought a golf bag? Once every 10 years. So he's like, there's not
If
much,
that.
there's not much repeat business in that. So he shifted to golf attire, and yeah, they have some really cool stuff. They have a brilliant, I guess, brand, if you will, about the type of people. They don't want or not, they want everybody, but their target market is the little bit rough around the edges golfer, and so I think it fits your perfect personality perfect, Tom, that you're wearing that.
I'll tell you a funny. I got a couple of stories around this whole thing. So I love the shirt so much. I took a picture of it. I live on a golf course in Florida. I live in Florida now, originally from New York. I know you can't tell by my accent, but I went outside. I had my wife take a picture of me in the shirt and put it up and tagged them, and they kind of ran with it. It was pretty awesome.
That's great.
And so, where I live is skewed a little bit older, retirement community or whatever. And so I went out one morning, like, I don't know, 8 a.m. I went to the range where I live. And all of a sudden, one of the pros comes racing up in the golf cart. And he's like, "Oh, thank God it's you. We just got a phone call that there was a hoodlum on the golf course."
Hoodlum.
So, "I'm so sorry." I'm like, "I take that as a compliment. Don't worry."
I love that. Hoodlum. Who uses that term anymore?
No,
It's like
old people, right?
It's like in the show, The New Girl, when he's like, those youths, those
Youths.
errant youths.
Those youths.
I'll tell you what, Bobby looks like every single swing I see him take on LinkedIn looks like he's like going to absolutely murder that ball. It is probably the most aggressive looking. Yeah, it's the most aggressive golf swing I've ever seen in my life, and I love it. I'm here for it.
Yeah, big old calves, swings, crushes the ball, throws the golf club, does the victory kick. Yeah. It's great.
Funny, I like it. It's like such a. It was always like very prim and proper type of sport. You're gonna dress a certain way, and you're gonna, all the etiquette and all that kind of stuff. But I think that is changing, for the good.
Oh, for sure.
And I love it. So it's good stuff.
And we've digressed a little bit, but that's all right, because I'm always a huge proponent of giving veteran brands a shout out. You're talking about how you got into Maui Wowie, how she steered you away, and that obviously was a huge impact on you and how you got into this. You don't want to see other people go down a similar path where they see a brand, they want to be a part of it, and they don't actually know how to, or just don't do the research on their own, and they end up in a bad situation. So when people or when businesses ask you to be a part of your program, because obviously the Tom Scarda Franchise Academy brand is significant, is well known. How do you vet companies to make sure that they're going to be a good fit for anybody, that you would actually recommend?
Well, there's a team of people that we have that look at all sorts of things. So there's two main criteria. So even if you're a layman and don't really know too much about it, there's something called a franchise disclosure document, which is mandated by the Federal Trade Commission. So the FDD for short. The franchise disclosure document has a wealth of information in it. It's scary because it's like really thick. It's like 150 pages. But it tells you like how much it is to own and operate it. Money wise to the dime. No hidden costs, no hidden fees. If there's any litigation against the company or perpetrated by the company anywhere in the country for the past 10 years, it has to be in that document.
Oh, that's huge.
Right? It's unbelievable. There's a list of people, every single person that's a franchise owner, their contact information is there, including anyone that has sold, transferred, or gone out of business in the past 3 years. It's the most transparent investment you could make. So the way we do it is when a company comes to us, at the very least, we're going to talk to every single franchise owner in the company and find out if they're happy. Simple. It's a simple thing. So, if they're making money, they're happy. If they're not making money, they're not happy. And then there's a lot of different things that we look at, from leadership to relationship. Do they let you slide if you make a mistake, or do they throw the book at you? It's like things like that we look for. And training is really important. It's sort of counterintuitive, but they do not want people from the industry that they're in. They want somebody who's a good manager and good leader for the franchise. So if you're an accountant, you're not going to buy an H&R Block. If you're a barber or a beautician, you can't buy a Supercuts haircutting franchise.
Like, you're not allowed to?
They won't give you the license. They won't do it, because this is where it's counterintuitive. Because what happens is, put yourself in that situation. You're a barber, right? And then you buy this franchise, and you're the manager. You got a supervisor in there during the day. And then, one day Sally calls in sick, and you're like, no problem, I'll cut hair. And then at the end of the day, you're like, well, I just saved myself $150. Maybe I don't need Sally. I'll just cut heads. Now you just bought yourself a job.
Gotcha.
And then you plateau.
That's
E-Myth.
actually really, really smart on their part to try and discourage that type of behavior.
Right. And you'd be surprised. So, like, the people that own those businesses are people that have, like, this entrepreneurial spirit. They came out of corporate with 10 years experience, 20 years experience, and they decided to give the proverbial finger to corporate America and do their own thing. And that's the people I work with, and that's what we're looking for, are those kind of folks, and that's where the vets come in. The veterans have all this experience that just, what happens is, and I don't have to tell you this.
No, please dive in, because a lot of guys need to hear this. They have that self-deprecating view of what value they can actually bring to society after they leave the military. They're like, all I did was turn wrenches in the Army. I don't have any applicable skills. So if you can talk through about why veterans from all walks of life, not just officer, not just enlisted, not just combat arms, not just logistics, like any veteran can do well.
Any veteran can do well. And what happens is, especially with the combat veterans, they come back and they come back into society, and they're lost. And in the military, everything is a sacrifice that you're doing for the greater good of the mission, whatever the mission is. And now you're back home, and what's the mission? There's no mission. There's no great job that's going to help me. You're in that mode, and it's hard to get out of that. In a franchise, it's actually like that. You're working with a team of people, and there's a mission of that franchise. So you have a franchise unit, we'll call it like a platoon, and then you have the franchise company, which is, dozens or hundreds of other platoons, and you're all working towards making this great brand. When the brand breaks and becomes a national brand name, all the boats float. Everybody makes more money. You can sell for more, right? So this is kind of where, and we have a whole program just for veterans. It's called VetFran. And it's administered by the International Franchise Association, which is a multi-million-dollar organization. It's a trade organization.
Do you know Jimmy Weeks?
Sounds familiar. Yeah.
He's part of the Vetrepreneur Collective. I'm pretty sure he's one of the higher up people within VetFran. He does a lot of marketing stuff.
I'm writing that down. I'll look him up. It sounds familiar, because I'm a CFE, Certified Franchise Executive, which is the only designation that you could get from in the industry, and so I'm connected to the IFA, the International Franchise Association, and so I get involved with VetFran and all these other programs they have going on. But this is where veterans should just take a peek, and because it's not for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get that. I was just listening to a video this morning from Rick Rubin. I don't know if you know the record producer. He was originally with the Beastie Boys in the 80s, and then he's like a mega
Okay.
record producer. Now he's more like a guru. And what he was saying is that, people feel like, oh, I got this passion. I want to be, he's the profession of comedian. I want to be a comedian. They put all their eggs in this basket, and they realize, like, holy cow, I can't pay my bills. So their mission goes on the wayside, and then they go get a job because they got to eat. He goes, what you got to do is really build a foundation, whether it's a job or a business, to help pay the bills, so then you could go follow your passion. And that's what I've been preaching for a long time in franchising. Just because you own whatever franchise it is, that's not like your be all and end all for the rest of your life. This is a vehicle to get you money and time so you could go and golf to your heart's content, or go bake cakes, or whatever you love to do, whatever your passion is, go to the range and shoot guns, but you got to put food on the table.
Mhm.
So that's what, look at a franchise as a vehicle to get you where you want to go, and you could be a vegetarian and own a McDonald's, because you're not the guy in there flipping burgers. You're the leader of the team, and you're going to motivate people to flip great burgers, or whatever, whatever
Mhm.
it is. I would never recommend McDonald's in a million years, by the way, but that's another story.
I've heard those ones are
Why not?
absorbently expensive.
It's expensive, and the ROI is a 6% on gross margin. So they're making they keep 6 cents on every dollar,
Mhm.
which is nothing. Even at an average income of, they gross out about 2.5 million average across all franchises in America in McDonald's. But if you do the math, take out a calculator real quick, 0.06 at 2.5 million, is 200,000. That's all you're making. And
For all that work. Yeah.
forget the work, it's the headaches. All those
Yeah.
It's a lot of
people
employees you need to
working for
manage.
you. Oh my God, unskilled labor, and they don't come in because they had a fight with their girlfriend. It's just, it's a horror. On
It's
the other hand,
150,000.
okay, thank you for that.
Only 150,000. Yeah, no, I'm just it's less than 200,000, so it makes it even
Right, I
less
was
appealing.
trying to make it sound a little bit better, but
Yeah. No.
it's but don't get me wrong, for the right person, it's a good business. It's mostly for people that need a tax shelter. Believe it or not, there are people out there who have called me and literally said, I want a business that doesn't make any money.
You're like, this could be an awkward
They want a tax
conversation.
write-off. Right. I'm like, excuse me, what? But there's people out there with that kind of money where they need to have a tax shelter so they don't pay taxes.
Makes
A
sense.
lot of taxes. It's crazy, but it's true.
I'm sure you've had some fun conversations with that. You're like, I'm not sure if I can have this conversation legally with you right now. I need to get my lawyer on the
Right.
phone.
Yeah. I'm not a CPA. I'm not an attorney. You have to do the whole disclosure.
Yeah.
I can't give you legal
My
advice.
acronym at the end of my title is CFE, not CPA. Do not confuse the two.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
So with your
That's good stuff.
with your coaching services, I know that's one of the big things that you offer. Guys and girls will come to you and say they want to explore the franchise opportunity. And I know one of your big offerings is you have a free coaching service to make sure that they're mentally ready. They understand the realm they're getting into, and you're teeing up for success, regardless of what industry they're getting into.
Yep. And I usually get people to like pump the brakes a little bit. Like, hang on a second. I know like you want to get into something, but let's pump the brakes. Let's figure out really where your skill sets are. But most importantly, I want to understand what their goals are. So if they come to me and they're like, well, I'm 35 years old. I have 2 kids. Blah, blah, blah. So let's look for something that's not going to have you working weekends. Since you got small kids, maybe you want to, be at the practice. Maybe you want to be the coach of the soccer team. So let's assess like what your life is, and then I work backwards to help them find a business that'll get them to where they want to go ultimately, and be happy. That's what it all comes down to. It's like, let's be happy. You don't need to make a lot of money all the time. The thing is, you don't need to spend a lot to make a lot.
Hmm.
A lot of great franchises that I love that I would recommend to my own family don't really cost more than a luxury car. So you could be into something for like $100,000 and you could kill it if you want to.
While I have you on that
The onus
topic,
is on.
what is like? I don't know if you're legally allowed to say it, but or not legally, but are you allowed to disclose what your favorite franchise is? Like, if you were going to pick one every time, regardless of someone's background, like they pay the most, they're the owners are the happiest, they have a really good brand and mission. You're like, this is just across the board. People really enjoy working for this franchise.
Well, they're not working for the franchise. I know that
Sorry,
that was just a slip on your part, but they own the franchise. It's like saying, it's like asking me like who's like the best looking chick in Hollywood. It's subjective. It depends, right?
Fair
Some
enough,
people
fair
like
enough.
brunettes, some like blondes. Like you're a leg man. You're what. So, but I'll answer your question. What I like is sucking water out of people's basements.
So
I've
restoration
heard a lot
stuff.
about that recently. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. I'm looking like when I want to recommend something, I got to be able to sleep at night, right? So if I say, hey, Greg, the best thing for you to do is XYZ, I got to look at that and know that I would do that myself, and that the financials are there, and it's going to make money, and the franchise company is going to treat you like a human, not a number, and that is an important aspect. But I'm looking for something that is a low investment, something that has high margins, something that is Amazon proof, something that might even be, recession and pandemic resilient if we could find that, which we can. But usually those kind of businesses are what I call unsexy. But the way I spell unsexy is Money.
It's weird how that works.
Oh,
It's
that's
crazy.
that's a podcast title.
I
there,
like
for
yep,
sure,
name it.
and a good reel. That's spot on. I love that.
It's what it is, and everybody calls me and they're like, "Oh, I want a Chick-fil-A." I'm like, "Yeah, me too, but you're not getting one, so forget it." And it's not even a real franchise, Chick-fil-A. That's a whole nother topic. But forget about sexy. Have an open mind, and try to find something that's going to give you time and money. And that's a point I want to make, if you guys don't mind.
Please.
They say that time is the most valuable commodity in life, and you can't buy time. Kind of true, but in franchising or in a really good business, you can buy time. So what I mean by that is you start a franchise. We're talking franchise. You could do it in any business, and you create your systems, right? The first person you hire is the person that does the task that you hate most in the business, right? That's kind of the first thing you do as you fill in your org chart. So after a while, we're going to call it, 3 years or so, you get to a point where, you don't have to go to work because you have a great supervisor, you got some great staff, and you could just check on it every once in a while. So what are you doing all day long? You're golfing, or you're baking cakes, or you're going to the gun range. And so it gives you time. You could get to a point where you make enough money where you don't have to do anything in your life that you don't want to. Meaning, like, you got to get the car wash or pick up the dry cleaning. It might make sense to pay somebody to do that for you, because your money, your time is worth so much money. It doesn't make sense for you to go pick up your dry cleaning. You could be working on this project instead, while somebody else does the task, and you're providing a job. You're providing money to this person, and so you could buy time. And I don't know if that makes sense to everybody listening,
Oh,
but
for sure.
you could buy time, and it's not automatic. There's no get rich quick. There's the only, what did I hear? Somebody said to me, the only free lunch is in a mousetrap. Don't get caught.
That's a great line.
I kind of like that.
So with that,
I like that.
I know that there's the idea that you get to the business to a point where it can essentially be self-reliant. It's running itself. You have the right managers, you have the right team, they're hiring the good people, and you're just checking on the financials, making sure everything's running smoothly. Trust but verify type stuff. And then you see people like Shaquille O'Neal, who you read up on their stuff, and they have 150 Subways and 75 Taco Bells or whatever his numbers. Like he just has an exorbitant number of franchises. Can you talk a little bit about stacking these franchises up, and then whether you layer in managers to run your managers, or how do you have you worked with many people that do this type of work?
I wish I could have spoke to Shaq first, because he bought some really crappy franchises.
You can cuss, it's fine. It's the
You can say
internet.
shit. Yeah.
I mean, it's just like wow, man. But when you got money, I guess it doesn't really matter. But stacking is a big thing. So there's two ways you could do it. So some people feel like, I just want a good business, and I'm going to go a mile wide and 10 miles deep with this, and I'm going to have great connections with my customers. And that's one way to do it. Then you could go and you could go 1 mile deep and 10 miles wide, and have like 10 franchise units of the same unit, of the same brand. But also, you could own different brands that offset each other.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning that you might have something like a mosquito repellent franchise that does great all summer long, and in the winter you might have something else that works well in the winter. Snow removal. It depends on what it is. So you could kind of like do that, offset the businesses, and keep all the men and women working all year long. So you could also buy area development rights for franchising. You could buy all of San Diego County if you got the money, and you could put in 20 units of a thing, and usually the things that pop up out of nowhere quickly are what we call area developer type franchises, like a Massage Envy. Like 10 years ago, there was no Massage Envies. Now there's one in every town in America.
Mm-hmm.
That's because there's one team of people. It's usually not one guy, but it's a team of people that buy the rights to the whole county, and they pop them up as quickly as possible. But it takes bucks to do that. The average people don't do that. The average people that buy a franchise, they start with one. They might buy the rights to 3, or 5 even. So you have your whole area covered. There's no other franchise coming in, and then you build it over a time that you agree with the franchise company, which is getting a little convoluted here. But there's different ways to stack them, and that's the way you can make a lot of money. But you need to have the supervisors. You have your own office, kind of your mini franchise office yourself.
Mm-hmm. And do you ever work with people that try to find mutually supporting businesses? Let's say like they do a restoration company, and then they also do a junk removal company, because most people that when they have flood damage, they have to rip out the drywall, the carpet, and other stuff like that.
Great
You're
point.
like, oh, I also have a company that can remove all this stuff for you. Is that something that you've seen people take advantage of?
Absolutely. And even on a larger scale, there's franchise companies that are doing that. So you're a restoration company, and all of a sudden you're buying like the HVAC system franchise, and you're also buying the dumpster franchise, and and now all your guys that are in the franchise could buy all those franchises under one umbrella. There's some companies that have upwards. I know of some that have upwards of 25 or 30 franchise concepts under one umbrella.
Jesus.
Wow.
And so, and then you could come in and you could start with one, and then 2 years later, like, oh, let me do this add-on, and let me do that add-on 5 years later, and then all of a sudden you got 12 franchise units, and it's kind of all the same customer base.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it is like home services, or like you had mentioned, like the B2B world, where there's a company that needs that. So it's like, all right, I'm a restoration guy, and now I have this dumpster thing. Now I could hire somebody to go and solicit every roofing company, because they need these dumpsters bad. And so it's just another stream of income, but I'm also using it in-house. And I also charge myself a lot of money to rent it from myself, so I can write it off as a loss. which is I didn't say that. I'm not a CPA.
Hey,
I can't.
prices are prices. As long as it's a realistic number, that's what business is about. It's not the military adage that plays very well into entrepreneurship is don't ever get into a fair fight. You know, if you can take advantage of what is tax law and what is, you know, national policy of how these things are done, if they say you can charge a business this price and you own the other business, that's a completely legal act. You're just setting the prices and you're paying for it with your other business. It's people see it as unfair because they're not taking advantage of it. But the fact of the matter is that is written into law that this is a way that you can operate.
Right.
Yeah, I think you got to look at it as an incentive type of deal instead of a punitive system, right? That's like, if you can take advantage of it, you can take advantage of it, and you should.
Right.
So what does your coaching service look like, Tom?
So that's a great question, and thank you for asking that. So, so what happens is I'll get with you know, a couple, a husband and a wife, or just one, and we go through a consultation. It's like 90 minutes on Zoom, and I assess who they are. Ask a lot of questions. I also bring them up to speed on franchising, what's available, what's good, what's bad, what's ugly, you know, all that stuff. With all the information that they share with me, I write a franchise business model for them. So it's a reflection of them and what they're looking for in an ideal business. They can use that model for any business, franchise or not, and even a job. So I write this up, and then I take that model and I sift through the 4,000 franchises, 90 industries, and I come back with a short list of companies that have exactly what they're looking for, fitted to a T. So it's really personalized. The service is free. I get paid like a recruiter. So if somebody buys a franchise, the franchise company pays me not only for making a good match, but they're matched based on the top performing profile of the current owners. So if you're a vet, chances are there's going to be a bunch of vets that are also in that franchise. And so that's important. And also, of course, they're vetted. So I had mentioned 4,000 franchises. We work with very few. Most of them don't cut it. They just don't cut it. And so we have one in just about every category, but we're not just throwing stuff out there. It has to be a great match. And the reason why is of course I want them to be successful. I want them to come back and buy more franchises, and I want their friends to be jealous and say, "Hey, how'd you do that?" "Oh, call Tom; he'll help you." That's all I'm looking for. Even if somebody doesn't buy a franchise, I get referrals all the time from people who worked with me in the past, never bought a franchise, but they you know, somebody crosses their path and they're like, "Oh, call Tom," and it happens all the time.
That's amazing. And you know, you said you met with oftentimes the husband and the wife because you should be making decisions together. Do you see people getting into franchises with business partners? You say like 2-3 people that want to jump in together, maybe pool their money to buy in. Do you see that, and do you recommend it?
I do see that. I don't recommend it unless you need to do it.
Too many chefs in the
And
kitchen.
what I mean is like financially. Sometimes one guy just doesn't have enough money to do it, so two buddies get into it together, and that's fine. If that is the case, of course, I have coaching around all of that, and it starts with everybody needs to know their role. So you're the introvert, you're the extrovert. You know, you think about the best example is Apple computers, right? Steve Jobs, he was the guy on stage. Nobody knew Steve Wozniak for the most part. He was the brains. And so you have to know your role. And Wozniak was fine with Jobs getting all the attention, you know, from the media. And he was just in the background, and he was cool with that. So you just got to know who you are, what your role is. It's got to be on paper. Even if it's a husband and wife, same thing. You know what your skill set is and execute on that, and let the other person do the other things.
That's a great way to put it. Especially
I got a couple. Go ahead.
I was say, especially with the comparison of Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, like that's a prime analogy of how a balanced relationship. Obviously, they had their own issues that came out later, but you know, at the macro level, that's a prime way to view how business partnerships should be. Don't overlap too much on skill sets and areas of responsibility.
Yeah, for sure. So I got a couple questions about entering into contracts with a franchise. So is it negotiable? And if so, what kind of levers do you have as the person buying into a franchise? And then once you enter into a contract, is that it? Is that like a lifetime deal? They can't come back. Like the company can't come back and say, "Hey, we've changed up the compensation structure, and it's now you're getting X, Y, Z." How does that work?
You're screwed, man. No, it's a great question, really good question, actually, and very insightful. So we call it a franchise agreement. It's a contract. Agreement is less. It's not
less
as
daunting.
threatening.
Yeah.
So it's all semantics, but it's for the most part not negotiable. And the reason why, especially the monetary pieces. So if the franchise fee is X, like just picture, like you and I buy the same franchise, right? Every franchise has a national convention. So, we're in, Tahiti next year at the convention, and we're BSing at the bar, and you're like, yeah, man, I negotiated the heck out of this, man. I got it, for 30,000 less than you got it. And I'm like, damn, and then everybody's angry. The other thing is the franchise disclosure document I mentioned earlier is a blown up version of the contract. Gives you deep details of everything that you're signing. If you make the change, it has to go back to the Federal Trade Commission to get reviewed. And so you got to bring in attorneys and you got to deal with all that crap. They're not going to do it. The other point I like to make is if a franchise company is negotiating with you and saying, hey, we'll do a side deal, we'll give you extra this, we'll give, discount on that, run as fast as you can. They're desperate to sell a franchise to somebody, and that is scary.
That makes sense.
That's a good point.
And
yeah.
Oh, go on. Do you have something else?
I was just thinking, to use Apple as an example again, you can't find Apple on sale ever.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because they're the best and they know it.
That's a good point.
It's a great place to be.
And I know a lot of people think franchises as fast food spots. Can you touch on some of the other industries that aren't fast food for people that either don't want to deal with food, don't like the fast food industry, they want to do something else? What are some of the other top industries that they can get into with franchises?
Oh my God. The list is long. So let's just do it this way. This is the best way to do it. Day in the life of an average person. You wake up in the morning and you get dressed. You go to 7-Eleven to buy some groceries. That's a franchise. You go gas up your car. That's a franchise. You go to work. You go to get a sandwich. That's a franchise. Go to work out after work. That's a franchise. You get home. Your wife's like, "Hey, we need to get the house painted." There's a franchise for that. We need to get the dog groomed. There's a franchise for that. It's like almost anything you could name. 1 out of every 7 businesses in America is a franchise, whether people realize it or not. Typically, they don't. Another thing that I say to people is, I was talking about Unsexy before, service businesses, low cost, high margin. Look around the room you're in right now. Almost everything you can put your eyes on, there's a franchise for it. So you need new flooring, there's a franchise for it. The window treatments, painting, roof. You need your gutters done. You need your driveway done. You need fencing. You need a new pool. I mean, franchise, all of it.
And they all come with the pre-vetted business model, all the back-end support you can possibly need. You just need to jump in and set it up, essentially.
That's it. You get the playbook, and now it's up to you to execute it. And that's a big thing to understand, is that the franchise company is not doing squat for you, right? They're training you. They're getting you all ready, right? But they're not running your business. You got to run the business. You make the decisions on the daily. It's up to you. So you got to be a decision maker. Again, vets, good for this. So I always say, like, if you're the kind of person that thinks you're going to join a gym and get in shape just because you joined the gym, don't buy a franchise. You actually have to show up and do the work. You have to use the equipment.
And I know the big question every single vet and every single person listening to this is going to ask, how do you get the money to buy into some of these franchises? I know some of them aren't cheap. You know, you're looking at 50, 100, 150K, probably even more than that for some of the top end ones. What options are there for raising capital, for getting financing, whatever it is to get a vet, they get their foot in the door so they can start bringing in revenue and paying this off over time?
If a vet has a little bit of an easier chance to get an SBA loan, there's some options in that world. There is all different ways, to get loans. Home equity is a good way. That I started that way myself. Home equity loan to start, give you seed capital, and at least you can write off some of that at the end of the year. This is not a good option for vets most likely, but you could use retirement money. If you have a 401k or an IRA, you could use that money tax-free and penalty-free regardless of your age.
Is that like a self-directed IRA at that point?
What's that?
Would that be considered like a self-directed IRA at that point? Or is it just another tax thing?
It's exactly what it is. So all you're doing really is like you have a job and you have a 401k. So if you change jobs and you want to move your 401k, all you're doing is transferring from this company to this company, right? So what this is you're taking and I don't say take all of it, but take some of it as seed money out of your, Fidelity account or whatever, and put it in, Smarter But Not Harder Incorporated. Now it's seed money. Now, as you're making money in your franchise, first few years, it's not income tax. It's paying yourself back. So you don't have to pay income tax on it.
That's amazing.
So there's tax breaks and things like that. You have to set up a C corporation to do that. And that's just as the way you're going to pay your taxes on a quarterly basis for business. But I actually have finance partners. As long as you have the big news is, as long as you have a 680 credit score, and no bankruptcies in your history, we could get you a loan, for any decent franchise. And a lot of the banks have money earmarked for specific franchises because they know it's a good model and people do not default in that particular franchise. So, don't let money stop you. As long as you have a decent credit score, 680 or better, we can work it out. What you'll see is they're gonna want you to be able to somehow come up with about $50,000 to get started. That's like the bare minimum.
Okay.
And so that's difficult for a lot of people. But again, don't let that stop you from, looking at it and making a phone call. Maybe we could get you something.
Absolutely. Here's a hypothetical scenario. You have a 401k, or let's say you have, a more recent service member who wasn't under the original, pension retirement plan. So I think it was 2018, the military started shifting away from the pension thing. So if you joined after whatever date, 2018, 2019, you're no longer eligible. And they have essentially a 401k type model. Could you take that tax-free as a self-directed IRA, put that as your 10% down required for a SBA loan, and get the rest of the money through the SBA? Would that be considered your skin in the game? And I know that you're not the tax person. I'm just curious if you've seen people do something like this, where they're pulling in the money for the SBA loan to really buy into a significant franchise.
I don't have the answer. I don't want to give
bad advice.
A guess. I don't want to give bad advice. I don't want to guess. But I have partners that can answer that question immediately.
The moral of the story is
this is what they do all day long.
Schedule an interview or a consultation call, figure out what your situation is, and then him and his team can work out the details of how you can make it happen.
Right. And if we just can't make it happen, we let you know up front. We're not gonna like draw it out and make you waste time. There's certain criteria that you're gonna have to have.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really a clean financial record and a 680 credit score. That there's ways to get money, and there's some possible there's like an SBA Express loan that you might be able to get where they'll give you up to 150,000 as long as you're a legit person with no bad credit history. So there's ways to get around it. And again, as a veteran, there's some veteran options, but it's like underwear; they change every day. Those options. So I don't know. I don't want to say what any are because tomorrow they're going to be different. I don't know. But there's options. I want people. The message is feel good. There's options for you.
And don't let money.
If you're thinking about business, there's options for you.
Don't let money be an insurmountable obstacle. Have the conversation first.
Have the conversation. We'll let you know right away. But also I want to say if anybody, and I don't know if this is a cool thing to do, but if anybody wants a copy of my book, any veteran, it's free of charge. So, you guys let me know. We could put out my website or my email, rather, your email, however you want to do that. But that's always, ever since I wrote this book, Franchise Savvy, if you're a veteran or a first responder, the book is free.
So that's awesome. Yeah, we'll definitely plug that in our show notes, and we can coordinate on how to best go about that for sure. That's awesome, though.
Yeah, and you said it's called Franchise Savvy.
Yeah, my book is Franchise Savvy. It's really my stories, the ups and downs that I had in franchising. It's not the kind of book where I'm laying out, tables and financial stuff, and it's like I'm not that kind of guy anyway. So it's just I'm an idea guy, and so it's all stories.
Awesome. No, it's where it's what's really memorable anyway. What draws people in is the story. People don't need to see spreadsheets and hard metrics. Some people like that stuff, but in terms of having that emotional connection of figuring out if this is the right path for you, it's really tying your individual personal story and seeing if it's going to be a good fit.
Yeah, and that's the thing, and my whole brand is all about I'm a regular guy. I did it. I was a government subway worker, right? If I could do it, anybody could do it. I don't have an education. I didn't come from money. My dad was a New York City police officer. I mean, but I took a chance. That's the thing, is taking the risk and choosing uncertainty instead of unhappiness, because people get stuck in unhappiness because it's familiar, right? So if you could choose uncertainty, that's where magic happens. But it's a risk, and you got to be willing to take that, roll that dice.
Mm-hmm. So I guess the last couple areas I wanted to touch on are just going to be, for general relevance to the audience. What type of misconceptions are there? What type of pitfalls are there that people run into with franchises? And then what type of skills do you see, hard skills, experiences that really lend themselves to successful franchise owners?
It's an interesting question. So, when I took a like a Myers-Briggs personality test or whatever, and it said, whatever you do, do not be a business owner and do not go into sales.
Nailed it.
And then 2 years later, I was #1 franchise owner in Maui Wowie among 200 units. So it comes with the chutzpah. Like, if you want to make it happen, you make it happen. You make a way or you make an excuse. I like to make a way. And so you got to have that kind of mentality to be an entrepreneur. You got to make a way. And so that's important, to have that kind of drive. If you have a drive, you're going to make it. I use the story all the time. A guy calls me up and like, oh, I want to buy a franchise. And my question is always why? Why now? And he's like, yeah, I have this dream. I really want to buy a Ferrari. And I'm like, yeah, conversation over, man. Because you're not going to get up, when you're having a bad day and say, yeah, I'm doing it for the Ferrari. It's not going to work.
I mean, it's like making it through Q course or through buds. I want to have a trident. I want to be able to say I'm a SEAL. It's never going to be, or the Green Beret. It's never going to be what gets you going when you're tired, you're cold, you're hungry, you want to quit. You need to have something much more intrinsic to motivate you.
It's got to be inside, man. It's like, absolutely, yeah. Just yeah, I'm going to do this because I want to have the trident. Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's what Kyle Bucket was talking about yesterday. Is that like it's not that people just they lied to themselves. They said that they wanted to become a SEAL or become a Green Beret, and they lied to themselves. They ultimately didn't know themselves well enough to really say like, this is why I want to do it, and that reason was not strong enough, right, to actually follow through with it.
And it reminds me of a personal story that I don't think I've ever shared anywhere before, but I'll share it because it's so like it's so weird. When I was young, like I don't know, junior high school, I decided I want to be on the football team. Like I don't really know the first thing about football. My parents were not into football. I mean, it just wasn't in our family. But I noticed like the guys that were on the football team were cool and they got all the girls. So I'm like, and so my mom goes and, gets me the shoulder pads when I joined the team. By the second practice, I'm like spitting dirt and I'm like, I quit. I'm out of here.
Getting girls isn't worth this.
It's like, I'll find another way. I ain't doing this. And it's because I didn't love football, right? You needed to have a love of football to, go to school all day, get out, and then run around like a maniac in the field doing practice and scrimmage and everything. And I'm like, yeah, my heart was not in it. It was the wrong reason. I got into it for the wrong reasons. And that's what will happen to somebody buying a franchise or starting a business. If you're doing it for the wrong reasons, it's going to suck you up and spit you out. And it's going to hurt. It really will. And to answer your other question, myths and misnomers, you don't need $1 million. Everybody's like, oh, I need $1 million. You don't need to be in fast food. 90 industries, 89 have nothing to do with fast food. That's another one. I'm going to be stuck in the store all day. No, not if you're in a good franchise that has great systems. You're going to have a lot of time. And you don't have to be in a store. I recommend not being in a store. I recommend a service franchise that you run out of your home. Much better, much cheaper, much more profits. So things along those lines is also what I talk about in the book. Don't get into something that's never been done before. People are like, oh, I don't want any competition. Think that through for a minute. You don't want any competition. How do you know there's a market for it? No, if nobody's doing question. It, why?
Yeah, having product market fit is a big one. That's probably the biggest advantage of a franchise is the business model already works. As you said, you have the disclosure agreement or the disclosure contract that shows you this is how well every other franchise in the country has, or even internationally has done. This is the ROI you can expect. It's proven. You know what your return's going to be if you follow their model.
So it's so true. But even more than that, Kevin, I just wrote an article about this, so it's top of mind for me. The franchise company, a good franchise company, they're not all good, but the good ones have the whole country mapped out, right? So they know where they want to be. So they know who their avatar is or their perfect customer. And it's all backed up by data. So they survey the customers. Maybe they only have 10 units, but they survey the customers and they realize, oh, it's this. This is who we need. And then they map out the country. They go to a marketing company. There's marketing companies out there, as you probably know, that have every household broken down into like 140 categories. So if you gave the company your address without your name, just your address, they could tell you how many people live there, how many males, how many females, how many dogs, what kind of car you drive, what kind of shoes you wear, what kind of beer you drink. They have it all. It's like scary as all heck. But for business, it's great for marketing. So an example I use all the time, I work closely with a dog grooming company. They'll do digital marketing. They'll only market to people that have dogs. It's not hard to figure out. it's never been easier to own a business than it is now because of all this data we have on people from Facebook and all the likes and all that kind of stuff. So like years ago, you would just send a leaflet to everybody's house in the neighborhood. Hey, get your dog groomed, blah, blah, blah. What a waste of money. Now we go direct to the person that has a dog, and they could even get down to making sure that we're going to dogs that get groomed, because there's some dogs that don't get grooming, like poodle. So it's just so interesting to me. That's my favorite part of the whole thing is like everything is data driven. They're not just, the great companies are not throwing stuff against the wall. They know they want to be in this area. And if they don't, they'll tell you, like, the market is not there for us.
That's amazing. And then for the last bit, what skills have you seen and experiences have you seen that veterans bring to the table that are so valuable that really lead to them being successful? Because I said 1 in 7 franchises is owned by a veteran. So there's obviously some kind of equation there that's working out.
Well, it's adaptability. If you're in the military, you know how to adapt, right? And when it's bad, when it's good. You got to, and you do the mission. Leadership experience is the big one, obviously. Being able to follow systems, be coachable, listen to the commander, and do your job. That's franchising. Here, this is what we're going to be doing. This is it. Here's the mission. Here's what you got to do. Execute. That is a great thing. Teamwork, collaboration, right? It's got it's like just military written all over it. All that experience. Resilience is a big thing.
And you notice none of these are specific MOS or job related. These are like the general soft skills that every veteran should be leaving the military with. You don't need to be an infantry guy. You don't need to be an artillery guy or a pilot. You can be any number of roles and still have resilience, adaptability, grit, problem solving, planning, giving intent. You understand the mission planning process. So it really just comes down to veterans in general are groomed essentially to step into this type of environment.
Right. And the franchise companies are like, when I work with a vet, they're just eating it up. Like, oh my God, I can't wait to talk to this person. Because they know that the chances of the success of that person is going to be high.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
Tom, I got one more question for you before we sign off here. Kevin and I both talked to a lot of veterans who are leaving the military or just are in the middle of their career and wanting to step into entrepreneurship. And one of their big things is they want autonomy and they don't want to work for the man. So what does that relationship between the franchise and the franchise owner look like? And is that level of autonomy that people are seeking or that veterans might be seeking there in those opportunities? And, what kind of decision, do they have a lot of autonomy in the decision-making process? Is there a lot of things being pushed down from the franchises? Can you just touch on that a little bit? Because I think there'll be some people that'll be interested in hearing about that.
Yeah, that's a great one too. Thank you. So, you're totally on your own in the day-to-day operation. So you get the book, the training manual, all that stuff. You're going to go to training. Typically, you go to corporate headquarters for about a week. And then a lot of times they'll come back to your location for a week or two to get you up and running. So it's like very hands-on. But then it's like, you graduate and like you're off, like, and so the nice thing is it's more like having a coach in the background. Like, what's even better though, what people don't talk about a lot is the fact that it's your fellow franchise owners that are the real support system. So if you say you own a pizza joint and you run out of cheese, if you're not in a franchise, who are you going to call on a Sunday night? But in the franchise world, you could call the guy in the next territory that has the same franchise. He's going to give you any extra cheese he has because he doesn't want you to not be able to serve, because that's bad on the brand in general. And so you have that support system, and that's really important. You may never, Like if you're running a tight ship, following the system is what they say, follow the system, and everything is going fine, you'll never hear from the franchise company. Never. There's no reason to. They'll reach out to you to say, hey, we got training coming up for, employee retention. You want to be on that webinar? Here's the info. That's about it. You're on your, I hate saying you're on your own, but you're very much hands off. You do what you got to do, make it work. If you're not doing what you got to do, right? If the franchise is not doing well, they'll see that in the royalty reports, and they'll knock on your door and say, hey, how can we help you? We want you to make more money. And then if for whatever reason, you're the wrong person, they're going to help you get out. They're going to help you sell that franchise because I'm going to call you, right? I'm buying the same franchise now. I'm going to call you and I'm going to say, so how's it going in San Diego? And you're going to be like, oh man, it sucks. I'm losing my shirt. The franchise company doesn't want that phone call, so it'll get you out, get somebody else in.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that's the perfect dynamic that a lot of veterans are probably looking for.
I mean, that's pretty much what the military
having a
is.
support
Like,
system in the background is huge.
Send you out to a fob and be like, here's your mission, go do it, and let us know when you need resupply.
Right.
Better
like
incentive
that.
alignment, I think.
Yeah, that's true too. A little bit better quality of life. You're not living off MREs and the faked heated ones. I forget what those ones are called. Basically the same thing.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Dried food.
Awesome talk.
I think that I think it's a great fit for anyone who wants sort of a leg up. That's really what it is to be able to, jump into something and run it. It's yours. When you sell it, you keep, I'm not going to say 100% of the profits, but you keep 100% of the profits. There's usually a transfer fee. But you keep the money. It's yours. It's your business. And when you want to get out, usually it's like a fellow franchisee that's going to buy the franchise because they know it, and now they're going to expand, and they buy the unit. It's up and running. Just change. It's just a matter of paperwork, and that's that.
That's huge, right there. Yeah, having an exit plan, so you know that as you're building this up, this isn't an indefinite role you have to fill. You can build it up, sell it, and enjoy the fruits of your labor.
That's it. That's the goal. There's really only three things that can happen with any business. You build it, you sell it for a nice nest egg. That's beautiful. That's what I did with my first one. The second thing is you build it, have people running it, great systems, and you retire on an island and drink Mai Tais. The third thing is you crash it and go out of business, which I don't like that idea. But
we'll stick with the first two.
That does happen. First two are much better.
Yeah.
I'm speaking from experience.
We really appreciate the conversation, Tom. This has been an incredible source of detailed knowledge from inside the industry. I know a lot of guys, they hear about what franchises are, they have an idea, but oftentimes it's either incomplete or incorrect. So you've been able to shed a ton of light onto the industry. I know you have a bunch of areas where people can find you. You're on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn. Most of them are either the Franchise Academy or Tom Scarda, Scarda. We'll drop it all in the description below. So if people are interested, they can find you. They can have that consultation call, figure out if franchising is right for them, and which option is going to be the best.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's an honor. Thank you, guys. I mean, if you need anything or if anybody's listening, don't hold back. There's no silly questions. Just find out, is there anything here for you? If we could help you, that's great. If it's not for you, we shake hands. We're still friends. No big deal.
Perfect.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Tom.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.